Hey,
Uh,
family. I'm glad you guys can join us. We're here with our brother Donald. He has a
Salome.
powerful testimony. Uh, he answered the call that Sister Abiyah put out the other day about sharing you all's testimony. I saw your testimony on your channel, and you reached out to us, brother Donald, and you said, "I want to share my testimony." And I just thank you for sharing that, and that you're here today to share with the body of believers what Yah has done for you, your journey. So I just want you to take the floor and then just share, just kind of tell us about your upbringing.
Okay.
You start there.
Um, yeah, born and raised in Pomona, California.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when my memory goes back probably about to 5 years old, and
Okay.
I went through, and that's pretty much due to trauma. Went through a whole
Mm.
lot of
Mm.
sexual abuse.
Wow.
When I was 5, I can remember that far back to a babysitter, like a family friend or a
Mm-hmm.
relative. I don't quite remember who it was, but they watched us basically almost
Mm.
every night, and he watched us almost every night, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, did a lot of things to me and threatened to harm or kill my baby sister. She was a baby at the time. If I
Wow.
said anything or told, so of course,
Mm-hmm.
a little kid like that at that age, I just was,
Right.
protective over my brother and my sister. So
Right.
I didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, fast forward a little bit forward, my mom at that time, she was pretty deep into alcohol by then, so she was an alcoholic, and
Mm-hmm.
she spent a lot of times at the bars. And my dad, he worked for I think it was Xerox, and
Mm.
it was far away, and so often, like, he would have to actually walk home from another town, like from Claremont or Upland or something, all the way to Pomona. And because he'd wait for my mom, but she wouldn't show up to pick him up, she'd be at the bar.
Wow.
Um,
So he would
and
walk,
yeah, yeah,
walk to work.
walk home from
Wow.
work. Yeah,
Wow.
he told us the story one time, and I totally believe him too. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
serious. Like, he was walking home because she didn't show up to pick him up,
Mm-hmm.
and then he got pulled over by a cop, like walking, like not
Right.
pulled. He got
Wow.
pulled over by a cop, and the cop was like, you fit the description of somebody who wrapped their car around a pole. My dad's like, I'm walking. Does it look like I wrapped my car around a pole? It's
Exactly.
like, come on,
Exactly.
man, come on.
Wow.
So yeah, it was
Mhm.
just constant stuff like that. I think with him, he got tired of that, and he basically, this was more of a generational curse thing that I understand now. Like, he left the home. He just went on,
Mm.
and it was just us with our mom and that babysitter or family friend and other family
Mhm.
friends and family. Um, Eventually, like, he showed up again and got us, and we went to go live
Mhm.
with him and his new wife.
Mm.
And she had like 9 kids or something, and he worked. At that time, he was a lay pastor at the Church of Christ,
Okay.
and he uh, was also janitor, took care of the grounds. He did it all there. He took care of that place. So we went to go live with him and her and her kids. And by then, I think I was about 6 or 7, something like that. It was only a couple of years later from that point in time when all that other stuff was happening.
Okay.
I was happy to leave though, due to all those. I
Right.
remember, I remember the
Right.
joy of just seeing my dad and being like, "Yeah, you came back for us," you know.
Exactly. I could imagine. I
Yeah.
could imagine.
So,
So,
go ahead.
do you guys have y'all went to church every week, or how was it
Yeah.
with your dad? Okay.
Yeah, he was a lay pastor at Church of Christ. So we
Mhm.
lived in the parish. What is it called? The
Parishioners,
parish.
right? The parish.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we lived in that house right next to on the church grounds.
Okay.
It was a big house that, there are nine
Wow.
kids plus us three, so that's like 12 kids in a big
Wow.
house.
Mhm.
And yeah, we went to church every Sunday as Church of Christ,
Mm-hmm.
except for at the point. Well, I haven't got to that point, but then my mom, she came back for us, and she had a new man.
Wow.
So we went to go live with her and him, and everything was cool for like 2 years. He was nice, and he's from Nigeria, and
Okay.
you know, and he was good. And then after about 2 years, we all moved into this multiplex, and his whole, like, he just completely changed. Like, they got married and then everything changed.
Wow.
And then he started to beat us, and I'm talking like not hand and belt, but telephone cables,
Wow.
barbecue fork. I had a barbecue fork stuck out on my back one time because I got the wrong T-shirt for him. I mean,
Wow.
it was that kind of stuff, and I was about 10 at the time. Yeah, so there was a lot of that went on for probably a couple of years. Yeah, it had to have been about 2 or 3 years. And then we went, my mom had enough. Like, we didn't even know, like, little kids, you don't realize what's going on with your own parents.
You're right.
At the
Right.
time. So she was spending a lot of time at the bar because she didn't want to come home and get beat by this guy.
Wow.
So we were getting left with him, and everything that my brother and sister did wrong, I would cover for him and be like, I did it. So I would take the beatings.
Right. Right.
You know, and so that kind of went on, and my sister had a different dad. So her dad showed up out of nowhere and started taking her. So it was just me and my brother, and just different things happened during that whole period of time that was just so confusing to us.
Right. And like you said, as kids, we don't really understand. We just
roll with the
growing up in it.
punches,
Right.
and deal with it. Yeah.
Right.
Not understand that we're also absorbing a lot of those different things that we could possibly carry on into our own adulthood and parenthood. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, shortly after that, like, something changed. Like, I could tell, like, something weird changed in our home. Like, it was like all of a sudden she had enough. And then at the same time, this is what happened though. At the same time, my brother, he was going to a different school because he's deaf in one ear and half deaf in the other. So he had to have different kind of education and teaching. And so he was going to a different school, and his teacher noticed these big, huge welts on his arms from being pinched. That was another thing that he used to do to my brother, is pinch him like really hard and twist it, you know. And she noticed that. So then she called the cops. And then they got my sister out of school. They got my brother out of school. They got me out of school. They brought me to my dad's house. So they brought us to our dad's house, and then my mom and he showed up. And then there was this, exchange. And then my brother and sister, they went to stay with my dad. And I didn't want to leave my mom with this guy.
Right.
And everything that was going on, it's like, okay, I'm going to go with my mom.
Right. To protect her.
Yeah. I just always had that, I guess, because my dad left when I was younger. I felt like I had to be the man of the house. And
right.
And
you were the oldest, right?
Now. Yeah.
And you were the oldest? Yeah. That's something how that happens. Like the oldest, they always, I used to say, I'm the second child. So my older brother's like the oldest, they take all of the brunt of everything. And like you said, feel like I have to protect everybody. So that's just, I guess it's just something about that firstborn.
Yep. And so while my brother and my sister were staying at my dad's and my stepmom's, I was having to deal with CPS and all of that stuff. They were coming in, and my stepdad was telling me, you better, act right and tell them this, and this, and I'm just like, again, I'm like, he's threatening my brother and sister and my mom. And I'm just like, okay, I'll play the part.
Yeah. Right.
So I did that, and they closed the case and went on, of course. And then that was about the time when my mom like fully had enough. and kicked him out. And
Mm-hmm.
at that time, I think she, in hindsight, talking to her when I got to spend the last 5 years with her, which I'll get to that point, but she had told me that she found out that he had a whole other family in Nigeria.
Incredible.
So he had 2 families going, one in America and one in Nigeria.
One in Nigeria.
Right.
Unbelievable.
And so that was what was the, I mean, everything that was happening to us was, you know, but that was the last straw.
Wow. Wow.
You know?
Incredible.
And so, yeah, that kind of put her into breakdown mode, and she went through a process of just, I don't know the whole story behind that, so I'm not going to speak fully to it, but she like went to get help, basically.
Right.
And so at that point in time, we went to go stay with my dad again. And my dad it was at that time that he, one Sunday, the lead pastor, the head pastor of that church was like, I'm going on vacation. I want you to preach. First time my dad got to preach at that church ever. He'd been taking care of that church, doing everything for that church. They finally let him, after years, you know,
get up there and preach.
Yeah, he was excited. He's like, okay, I got
right.
So he gets up there and he preaches straight from the scriptures. Like that's kind of always been my dad. It's just like, even though, you know, churchianity and all that stuff, he's still, I'm gonna preach straight from the scripture.
Right.
Next thing I know, they're kicking us out the church. They kicked us out that house. They gave my dad like a month. They're like, you got a month.
After his first sermon.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
kicked him. Oh my!
What happened? Like I became angry.
I'm sure.
Not at God, you know, not at YAH. At the time, I knew him as God.
Right.
Not at the Most High, and not at Mashiach, but at the people that claim to follow him. And it's like, I don't Christianity, basically. I got real angry, you know. And so fast forward a month later, he finds a place in San Bernardino, which is like an hour away from Pomona, east. We moved there and get settled in, and now I'm in like my second high school, and I'm just barely a sophomore. And so, you know, but the house we move in, you got to understand, we moved from a 6-bedroom house to a 2-bedroom house, and there's like 10 of us.
10 kids. Wow, 10 people. Wow.
10 kids and
10
2 adults.
Kids. Wow. Yeah. So everybody was everywhere.
Right. And you know, you hear the stories living with the roaches, man. I was living with the roaches. I was sleeping with the roaches, for real. Like,
wow.
You know, my dad and my stepmom had their bedroom, rightfully so, you know.
Right.
And then all of our sisters, my sister and then all of our stepsisters shared a room.
And everybody else in the living room.
There's like 5 of them sharing that room. And then my brother and I and 2 of our stepbrothers shared the living room.
Wow.
And man, you know, I'd be waking up and there's like this huge roach nibbling on my toe.
Oh.
That's how it was. You know, and that wasn't nothing on my dad. That's just how that neighborhood was. It was
right. Yeah.
Run down.
I know about it, brother. I grew up in the projects, so that comes with it.
Yep. And if you're in San Bernardino, you know that's probably it's one of the houses. It's a project neighborhood.
Right.
You know.
We're just in poverty.
Yeah.
And
so because of there's so many of us there, and it was just a 2-bedroom home and everything. My dad was like, you know, I got to get my kids somewhere where they're not like sleeping like this.
Right.
And so he moved us out to Oklahoma, to my grandma's house, my mom's mom. And we stayed with my grandma and my grandfather. The only grandfather I know, because again, generational curses, I don't know any of my real grandfathers.
Wow.
At all.
Wow.
He was the only grandfather I knew, because he's gone now. But we got to spend probably about 4 months out here. We moved out here in the summer, and then I started my junior year at the high school here. And there were, like my brother and I, we were the only two mixed kids there. And then there were two other Hebrew, brothers and sisters there. So there were 4 of us in that school.
Wow.
And, you at lunch, you knew who we were. We all were together.
Right. Your own clique.
Right.
Wow.
So, and during that period in time, this is like the late 80s. So, it's still pretty
right.
Oklahoma, South, anywhere in this area. It's just going to be
still had that Southern mentality.
Yep. And so, yeah, I mean, it was good for a minute. I love my grandma and I love my grandpa. They're both gone now, but man, like they taught me a lot about taking care of yourself, growing your food, doing all the things that you need to do.
Wow.
That I would have never understood or known in the city.
In the city, right.
Yeah. But of course, all of that Southern mentality and all that stuff started creeping in. And my one day my brother, he had because of his hearing and speech impediment, he has a short fuse.
Okay.
He doesn't have self-control over his anger and stuff like that. So
wow.
He's a lot better now, but when he was young, it was just like in a second, yeah, he some girl like started making fun of him because of the way he talked, and he lost his cool. And
wow.
He kind of turned around, and as they were getting on the bus, he turned around and he shoved her off the bus.
Oh,
yeah. Wow. So my uncle had to go get him from school. I was already home, and then they came home, and my uncle was just going off on him, and I'm just like, well, what did he do? Like, what's the problem? What happened? I just want to know what happened.
Right.
And he turns to me, and he's just like, he had like my cousin, my little cousin, he had him in his arm, and he just looks at me and he's like, don't come at me with your N-word attitude,
Wow.
And I'm just like, wait, what did you just say? Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, what did you just say? And and I was like, okay, man, you're gonna have to put the baby down so you and I could go at it. I started getting heated. Right. I was just like, what? No. And
wow.
He wouldn't put my cousin down. And I was livid. And my grandma came out and she's like, what's going on? And I told my grandma, she's like, she looked at my uncle and she just shook her head. She's like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
And I went and I asked my grandma, I was like, can I call my dad? And she's like, yeah, of course. So I called my dad and I was like, can you come get us? He's like, what happened?
California. Right.
Yeah.
Dad is in California. Wow.
California. I'm like, can you come get us? Because I was like, how soon can you come get us?
Right.
And he was like, what happened? And I'm just like, I told him, he's like, oh, I'm gonna be there.
Now.
I'll be there tomorrow.
That's awesome.
I'm like, tomorrow? I knew it was like a 2-day drive. I drove.
Right.
Wow. And he's like, yeah, I'll be there tomorrow. And he just, he got in he rented a van and just was here the next.
Drove all the way.
The next night. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was just like, okay. And he wouldn't even come in. Like my grandma was like, you come in. I was like, he was like, no, I don't.
Wow. I just need my children and
yeah. He's like, just have come have them pack up their stuff and let's go.
Wow. How old were you at that time?
At that time I was 15, going on 16. And I skipped a big moment in my life where the devil did creep back in. And yeah, at that point in time, right before that had happened was a time where my so-called friends were like, yeah, let's go out. I'm like, okay, because it was getting close to my birthday, and they're like, let's go out. I'm like, okay. So they took me driving around, and then they got me drunk. I say got me, but I went along with it, of course. Admittedly. But all I remember was being dropped off at this woman's house, and she must have been like 30 or 40 years old.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I remember and the messed up part was she was like around the corner from my grandma's house down the street.
Wow.
I woke up on the couch and my pants were like almost down and my clothes were loosened and things had happened. And I just was like,
Right. You were out of
ashamed, totally ashamed. I'm just, and I'm taking, that walk of shame back to my grandma's house. And I don't know, like that was the first time like that innocence was taken from me.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And so back to my dad, he came and got us like this was like probably about a month later. And then that whole incident when my uncle happened and my dad showed up like the next night. I still trip on that. Like, Dad, how did you get here within like less than 2 days? Like, I don't understand.
He pedal to the metal.
Right. Wow. I mean, I understand now because I have kids, and it's like if
absolutely
anyone had did something like that and threatened, like went at that approach to my kids and they weren't in my care and they were in someone else's care, I'd be like, I'll be there.
Yep.
I'll be there
like,
tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yes. Tomorrow.
5 days away, but I'll be there tomorrow.
Exactly. So I mean, I bet you that's a powerful memory of your dad, even though y'all had the issues and stuff, but that's still awesome.
Oh yeah.
And a powerful memory that he did that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
And it worked out that at that time, my dad had got us and we got back to California. My mom had already gotten out of whatever treatment she was going through. And she had a new man. Problem was both of them were alcoholics. But we went to go live with them. They bought a house and it was down the street from my first high school that I started my freshman year in Pomona High. And so I got to finish out where I started.
Wow.
At the same high school. So that was good. I mean, I went to 3 different high schools, but at least I got to finish.
Right where you started. Right.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, there was just a whole lot of a lot of nights where we were by ourselves or to our own devices. And I'm in high school by then, man. I'm a junior, about to be a senior. And it's just like doing stupid stuff that stupid kids do.
Yep.
Yep. And one night I was out. I snuck out of my window. My mom and my stepdad were out at the bar, so I didn't think that they'd be home till later. And so I snuck out and to go meet some girl, and we didn't do nothing. We just was talking and all this stuff. And then I came. The funny part is I snuck out and I took my sister's bicycle.
Wow.
So I'm on a girl's bike, pedaling to meet some girl, right?
Wow.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Oh man. But then
I crazy stuff like that as kids.
Yeah, and I get back and I'm sneaking back in my bedroom window, and I look up and my mom and my stepdad are standing right there in the doorway, and she's like, "What are you doing?"
Wow.
and he's just kind of like, and I'm just like, just coming back in the house.
Wow.
But then she starts going off on me and my brother, and wake up my brother and sister come into my bedroom, and they kind of get in the middle. My sister mostly, she got in the middle in between me and my stepdad just like starts going off on me, and then he shoves my sister out the way.
Wow.
And she, at that time, like I'm about to be 17 and she's probably like 13, 14, like she's little.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And he just shoves her out the way, and I'm just like, again, that whole confrontation with my uncle comes in. I'm just like, no.
Yeah,
it's my brother and my sister, and I'm just
right.
Like, no.
I've been protecting them my whole life. Yeah.
I don't know where this strength came from, but I picked him up and I threw him across the room.
Wow.
And then my mom at that time was like, they're both drunk, right? So my mom at that time, she's like, get out. You know, she's screaming it, get out. And I'm just like, okay. And I leave.
Wow.
So I had to walk from like, this was like the northwest side of Pomona, all the way through the east to the east side and down to the south side, which is just like I walked through 3 different hoods.
Wow.
And normally when I used to have to walk,
night.
when I used in my freshman year when I had to walk to school,
Mm-hmm.
I had to walk that route, so I had to actually change my t-shirts.
Wow.
So I changed from a blue shirt to a red shirt to a black shirt.
Wow.
You know,
wow.
To make sure that I didn't
right. Make sure I wasn't mistaken for nobody.
I wore Pro Wings, not Nikes. You know, I was wise. I'm sorry. I don't want
Right.
my shoes hanging from the telephone line. Not
exactly.
at all.
Exactly.
You know?
Wow.
But that night I had to walk all through those neighborhoods just to get to my best friend's house who was going to take me in until my dad, who lived in San Bernardino, could come and get me.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I did a whole lot of, I remember doing a whole lot of prayer, just talking with the Most High, just like, why am I living? Why am I being treated this way? Why have I gone through all these things? You know,
right.
like, and
right.
Of course, you know, when you're not living for him, you're not going to get an answer.
Not at all.
You know,
you're right. Right.
But yeah, you know, my dad showed up and I still went to school. The amazing thing is I still went to school. Like,
right.
You know, like my mom
going through all that.
Filed me as a runaway, all this other stuff. I was no, I didn't run away. I'm here at school.
You kicked me out,
right here. You know, and my school was right down the street from their house. So it's like, I didn't run away. I'm right here.
Right here.
You know.
Wow.
And so I ended up, you know, reconciling with my mom and with my stepdad. You know, I knew I was in the wrong, but you know, I apologized for my part and moved back in with my mom and him and my brother and sister. And then towards the last semester of my senior year, my mom and him decide they're going to move to Tucson. And so I'm like, no, I don't want to do a 4th high school. I got like a few more months, and I want to graduate. I was like, can you stick around till I graduate?
Right.
And then move, you know? So they did. They stuck around till I graduated. I got to graduate there at Pomona High. Then they moved to Tucson, Arizona. I stayed back in San Bernardino with my dad, worked for a while through the summer and saved up a bunch of money. I was going to move to Northern Arizona because I had a girlfriend at the time and she lived there and we maintained communication. And we were like, we wanted to get married and go to school out there and all that stuff. And I was like trying to stay straight, you know?
Right.
But I moved out there. I packed up my bags and everything. End of summer, I had all this money saved and loaded my car, drove out there, and come to find out she already was messing around and all that stuff. Because I wouldn't do that stuff. She went to someone else, and I was just like, okay, all right, you know. So I drove down to Tucson, and I ended up staying with my mom and my stepdad again for a little bit until I got on my feet. And that's when I got into the mix with really the really wrong crowd. So we got, you know, I got pulled into like, you know, just not heavy smoking weed or anything like that, but just dropping acid, taking mushrooms, stuff like that, you know. That this whole group that I got caught up with, they were just, you know, like we were into, you know, we were doing graffiti and all this other stuff. I still do graffiti art, but I do it as art, you know.
Right.
Not as illegal work.
Right.
But yeah, they introduced me to acid, to LSD, and to mushrooms, and I started getting into that stuff. Let me back up just a little bit though. Before I moved, so during that summer, before I moved out there, my stepsister, her boyfriend had invited me to a mosque. He's like, hey, you want to come to the Juma service with me, which is their Friday. That's their service is every Fridays. So it's called Juma. And I was like, what's that? it's like, well, it's kind of like your dad's church, but
Right.
it's our church. It's our where we fellowship or whatever. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And of course, my outlook on church and all of that was already messed up from when I was a child
Kid.
and
Right.
everything that happened to my dad. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
So I went, and as a naive teen, uh, this guy's like, yeah, everything looked good. Like they were all like peaceful. We went
Mm.
in and they were,
It was order.
they were they were doing their rituals, man. But
Wow.
it looked like, peace.
Right.
And I felt kind of at peace. It was a
Mm-hmm.
deceptive peace, of course, but I felt at
Mm-hmm.
peace.
Right.
Um, so the imam, which is, I'm sure you're familiar with that term, but that's their term for their pastor or
Pastor.
spiritual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He comes to me and he's like, asking me and if I want to join them
Wow.
in some form or fashion of words. I don't quite remember
Mm-hmm.
exactly what he asked me, but it was basically, do you want to join our fellowship
Right.
kind of thing?
Right.
And I'm just like, yeah, you guys, it seems really good here. I do want to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, well, just say the words. It's just like these places are no different. Everywhere you go, it's like, just say the words. What?
And you're in.
And you're in.
You're
Say the
in.
word.
Right.
I didn't realize
Wow.
I was saying an oath, proclaiming an oath, saying that there's, the oath. It's like, no, there's no God but
Oh,
that one,
right.
and
Right.
he has no son.
Mm.
Right. So
Wow.
that's what I said. I repeated after him in Arabic, and I had no
Mm-hmm.
clue.
Wow.
It wasn't until
Wow.
3.5 years later, deep into it, that
You
studying on my
understood
own,
what you
that I
said. Right.
understood what I said.
Wow. Wow.
But yeah, so I said the Shahada oath, and at that time became a Muslim, right? So
Wow.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so then back to fast forward, I'm living in Tucson. I get on my feet. I get mixed up with this wrong crowd.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a whole bunch of different drugs, basically. I had a limit. I didn't go
Mm-hmm.
past the acid or mushrooms. I didn't mess with all that chemical stuff,
Right.
except for the
Right.
acid.
Mm-hmm.
But it really did mess me up. Like, uh, I had my resolve though still. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
y'all still kept the resolve in me the whole time.
Hallelujah.
I could look back at that and see that he kept me
Still had his
alive
hand on you. Right.
the
He still
whole
had his hand.
time.
Right.
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 Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
there's this one night, um, we were partying and we were doing our thing, and uh, I was I was deep into music. I've been into music since I was 13,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in the DJ room, like they had the turntables and all the stuff and the lights and all
Mm-hmm.
this other stuff, and I noticed, like, I look up and everybody's gone, and I'm just like, why am I here by myself? What's going on?
Right.
Right. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, I'm here by myself so I can make music. So
Right.
I start continue. I keep working on music, and
Mm-hmm.
about, I don't know, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and this isn't in my testimony, but briefly, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, a whole group of them come busting in the house, and they're all excited and amped up, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what?
What's
Why are
going
you
on?
guys so excited? What did you what?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, we gang this
Wow.
woman down the street, and I'm just like, I look at them and I get up and I'm like, what did you just say? And they're like, yeah, we just did it. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to leave now. And if you ever come on my side of town, if I see any of your faces again, you won't see light anymore. I was serious. I was like, say goodbye to your family members, because if you're on my side of the town, they're going to wish you were still here. Trying to find a polite way to say it, but that's basically what I said in, no shorter words. Um, I got, I felt like my dad that night because I left that place and I walked. And so from like the south side of Tucson all the way to the north side of Tucson, to my mom and my stepdad's apartment. I walked, just walked. Oh yeah. It's a, I mean, to drive from there to there, it's like a, without traffic, like a 30-minute drive.
Oh
To
wow.
walk from there to there is like a
Yeah,
2-hour
yes,
walk
yeah, yeah. Easy.
in the middle of the night. And of course, you know,
Wow.
I catch harassment from the cops too and all that along
Mm-hmm.
the way, but praise
Mm-hmm.
Yah, everything was well.
Right.
That was
Wow.
a changing point in my life though, because it made me realize these are the people that I'm
That
putting
you was hanging
myself
with. Right,
around me.
right,
Like,
right.
who am I? Like, how far have I gotten? You know? Um,
Exactly.
so yeah, like, you know, a few months later, away from all that stuff, hadn't
Mm-hmm.
done any of that stuff, just hanging with my mom and my stepdad, focusing on work and school, you
Mm-hmm.
know, just trying to get back on my own feet and get my own place, not with a bunch of roommates that are like that.
Right.
Um, one of my friends who wasn't part of that crowd that busted in, but
Mm-hmm.
we were all part of that same circle.
Right.
He calls me up and he's like, "Hey man, where you been?" You know, because he was out of town when all that happened. And he shows up.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "You want to hang out?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, sure. I miss you, bro. Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
go."
Right.
And so we did. We went, and then um, I had like one stupid hit of acid,
Oh wow.
and I drove back home. I had my sister with me, my little
Mm-hmm.
sister, and and praise Yah again. His hand has been over me this whole time
Mm.
because I could have killed my sister that night, and I wouldn't have lived with myself. But I gave her a half a hit of acid, and I still, you know, I apologize to her every time I see her. I repented of it. It's just it was bad. It put her into seizure. Gave her seizures.
That
Um,
moment she took it.
a little bit after, like 30 minutes later,
Oh
we're just
wow.
sitting there talking, and then all of a sudden she just starts going into seizures, and
Oh
I'm just like,
wow. Oh my
oh no.
goodness. What I done? What did I
So
do?
we left. We drove home after she came through that. We drove home, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm tripping on acid and extra high,
Mm-hmm.
driving with her,
Wow. Having
asking her
seizures.
if she could tell me where the lines are on the road.
Oh.
Yah's hand was
Your hand
over,
was
right?
on you, brother.
I made it home. I didn't kill nobody or my
Wow.
sister. Praise
Wow.
Abba.
Yes.
But I got home. As soon as I walked through, and I was driving my mom's truck too. As soon as I
Mm-hmm.
walked through the door, like she and my stepdad were having like a neighborhood apartment block party. They were all drinking,
Mm.
and I just put the keys on the thing, and I walked straight down the hall. She's like, "How'd it go?" And I didn't say anything. I just went in my bedroom. I closed the
Wow.
door, and like I said, I was into art and music, so I always
Mm-hmm.
drew a lot. And I had this drawing of, I don't know why, but I had this drawing. Well, I know why. I had this drawing of this naked woman on my thing. I drew it, and it
Wow.
was on the wall.
Mm.
And this is where, like, when you played the other brother's testimony, where he describes that darkness. This is my experience of that too. Um, yeah, I'm sitting in my room on my bed, contemplating, like my heart's racing. I'm like, what is going on? Like, why did I do that? Why did I go back to that? And I'm staring at this picture, and then all of a sudden, the walls go black, except for that picture. And then I look down at the floor and I look at the ceiling, and then all of a sudden those go black. And I look at that picture, and the picture, the woman just comes out of the wall and looks at me and goes
Oh
and backs
wow.
up, and all of a sudden everything goes black, and I can't I the feeling that I get was just intense. Like, I can't
Wow.
even describe what it was. It was just, and that laughter, it was evil. It just echoed all around me.
Mm.
Um, so
Wow.
during that time, I guess I blacked out, and then my sister came in and she found me that way, and she started like trying to take care of me. And she called my mom and my stepdad, and they came in. And when they came in, it's like I could hear them talking, but everything was black. Like it was dark and it was thick and it was heavy and it was scary. Like it was just very frightening. Like I can't even like describe in the natural world how it felt.
Right.
But I remember my mom asking my stepdad, what do we do? And he used to take that stuff. So he's like, oh, well, you know, we could take him to the hospital, but they're just going to pump his stomach. So he's just going to ride it out.
Right.
And then at that point, right when he said that, that kind of echoed. And then I went into convulsions. I didn't know that I was going to convulsions, but this is what my mom told me.
Right.
I went in convulsions. My heart stopped for I don't know how long, but it stopped, and it scared him.
Wow.
But then I came back. I came to. But during that time, that's when everything just went straight black. I couldn't even hear them anymore. All I heard was just that evil laughing. And
when your heart stopped.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And it was like I said, I can't describe it in the natural world. It was just scary. It was real scary. It scared me so much I never went back to that stuff again.
Never touched it again.
No, the next day, my mom was like, I got to go to Phoenix, which is like at that time, it was like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive. So I got to go to Phoenix to his mom's, you know, to take something to her. Like, are you going to be okay? I'm like, can I go with you? I didn't want to be alone. I didn't trust myself.
Right.
I was like, can I go with you?
Right.
You know?
Not leave me alone.
And she's like, yeah, of course. So I spent that day driving out there with my mom. I actually sat in the back of the truck under the camper. I just felt so ashamed. Like I couldn't even sit in her presence because I just felt bad, you know.
What you did, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so that was my, I guess what they call a near-death experience, but
right,
it took me, and Yah was there. I mean, he
was there.
He was showing me where I was going.
Yes. If you don't turn it around.
Yeah. Of course, I didn't turn it around like fully, right?
Right. Still had a little bit more learning to do.
Yeah, he's long suffering though, man.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So from that point in time, like things were just different. I got an opportunity to move to Seattle, Washington, with the job that I was working at. I got an opportunity to be a warehouse manager, supervisor type of thing for a leather company. So I just moved out there to get away from everything that was in Tucson. And at that point, I had realized, man, everything down there is just evil. It's hot. It's wicked. I don't want it.
I don't want no part of it. Exactly. I got to get out of here.
But things for me just didn't. I didn't straighten up and go his way and stay narrow. It's just things just got worse and more wide. You know, it's like I move out there and then I get established and get on my feet, but then I let 3 of my old friends from Tucson come up there and live with me, and they were all females. So it was like I was the Three's Company guy, you know. I don't know if you remember that show.
Yeah, I remember.
I'm living with these 3, but see, I'm working and trying to be responsible, and they were not. Wow. And so I would come home and my apartment door would be open, music blasting, my stereo speakers all on the steps, and people I don't know all up in my apartment. I'm just like,
wow.
Eventually it came to the point where the manager evicted us all and I was living on the street. So yeah, I lived in my car during the winter in Seattle with a busted out window in the back, sleeping in the parking lot of my job, and then getting up and washing before anybody got in.
Wow.
And opening up the store.
Wow.
And I had permission from the manager to do that while I got back on my feet. But yeah, from that point in time, my mom found out what was going on, and then I was living on the street and living in my car. And so she got me an apartment, or she helped get me into an apartment. And that same friend that came from out of state was like, "Hey, what you doing, man? It's been a minute." Like he's always been one of my close friends back
Right.
then.
Right.
He's just been a minute. I was like, he ended up moving and living just 2 hours north of where I was, and I was just like,
Okay.
"Oh, I live down in Seattle." He's like, "Oh, I'm 2 hours north of you. Let's hang out." And I'm just like, "Okay."
Right.
I just didn't learn my lesson the first time, right? So but yeah, like things happen. Again, Yah's hand over my life. Had a girlfriend then, and was I wouldn't enter into certain things with this person. So again, same thing happened basically.
Wow.
We got in a fight. I went on a walk, and I'm in some neighborhood that I don't know. And a car full of brothers pulled by. And my upbringing just didn't kick in at that moment.
Right.
Because me and that girl were fighting, and I was just focused on
Right.
that.
Right.
They turned around down the street and then started coming towards me. And then they pull up slow and they're like, "Hey, you got which way is so?" It's an old tactic, right? Which way is so and so? So they know that you don't know where you're at.
Where you at?
And I'm like, it's, and before I could get the "it's" out, they all get out the car and they beat me down to the ground.
Wow.
I had a pack of cigarettes in my pocket and $11. That's what they took.
Wow.
And they left me there pretty much bloody on the side of the road.
Wow.
I was passed out. I remember waking up a little bit later, blood in my eye, and I could see a cop driving by, and he just kept driving. And then I passed back out.
Wow.
And then I remember getting back up again, and you'll love this because I remember opening my eyes and a big rig comes by and his brakes stop.
Right.
He opens his door. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like, "Oh, thankfully somebody stopped."
Right.
I'm like, I was, and I tried to get where I'm slurring because they hit me one of them had like a 2x4 in his hand.
Ooh.
Right. So he hit me in my legs, knocked me to the ground, and then they all just start kicking me and beat me down.
Wow.
And I remember getting hit in the head with that thing in the face, the side of the face.
With the 2x4.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And yeah, so he helped me out. He was like, well, do you need a ride? And I'm like, do you need to go to the hospital? I'm like, I just need to be taken back over to where I'm staying, to my girlfriend's house. And so he's like, okay, do you know where that's at? And I'm like, I think I do. And so he lets me get in, and then he takes me down the road, and he's like, do you know like any monuments, like anything that I'm like, yeah, there's this park that's like right down the street from it. It's got this weird statue thing. And he's like, okay, I know where that's at. And he dropped me down the street from our house.
Wow.
Praise Yah. That was Yah. That's all Yah.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Because I could have been left there to die.
Yeah, left for dead. That's how they left you.
It tripped me out that the cop just drove right by.
Didn't even see you.
No, he saw me. I remember
he just kept going.
Eyes. Yeah.
Y'all locked eyes and he just kept going.
He drove by, he slowed down and he looked, and I kind of looked up, and I tried to raise my hand like, wow. And he just kept going. I'm just like, and just passed back out.
He left me for dead. Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I get home, well, where I was staying. I go in and again, this woman already got somebody in their house. And I'm just like,
you just left.
Yeah. She opened the door and she's like, what happened to your face? I'm like, and I see somebody sitting there on the couch. I'm like, can I just use your restroom so I can clean up, please? She's like, sure. So I went back to her bathroom, cleaned up, and then I passed out on her bathroom floor.
Wow.
Now this is also Yah, or because he just has been carrying me through all of this. One stupid decision after another. He keeps saying, I'm here.
Still had his hand on you. Yes.
One day you're going to turn to me. I'm here. And so
absolutely.
I wake up that morning. This girl went off to work. She left me there in the bathroom on the floor. I hear a knock on their door. And so I get up and I walk out and nobody's there. And I'm like, nobody's in the apartment or the house, and I'm just like, okay. So I open the door. It's that same friend. He's like,
Wow.
what
Same
happened
guy.
to your face, man? And I'm just like, man, people keep asking me that. I explained what happened. He's like, oh, he's like, you want to get out of this place? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I do.
Wow.
I'm going nowhere here. He's like, let's move to
Right.
Colorado. I'm like, okay. He's like, how much you got any money in your account? It's like, he's like, I
Mm-hmm.
got $800. What you got? And I'm just like, I got a paycheck like 445 coming up.
Right.
Just gotta go pick it up.
Wow.
He's like, oh,
Wow.
that's good enough. Let's pack up your stuff. Let's go.
Wow. That was your friend?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Him and I,
Wow.
like back then,
It was
I still
tight.
talk to him. Yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
he's
Right.
off in a whole different.
I
Yeah.
got you.
I
I
still
got
try
you.
to, speak to him about YAH, but
Right. I know. You
um,
know how it goes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but I keep praying for him. I'll keep praying for
That's
him.
all we could do, brother, and keep planting seeds. That's it.
Yep. Yep.
That's
So
it.
we make the drive from Seattle, Washington, all the way to Colorado Springs, Colorado. Uh, we went south first over to Oakland, and then went east. Yeah. Um, that was short lived. We stayed with his mom. We were there for. I got a job. We were there for 3 months, and I ended up back in Tucson. We both drove back to Tucson. He's like, "Hey, let's go down to Tucson." So we went down to Tucson. I was like, "Yeah, I want to see my mom. My brother and my sister are still down there." I was like, "Let's go." So we get down there, and then he's like, "Okay, I'm going back. I'm going back to Colorado." He's like, "Are you coming with me?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm gonna stay here. I'm a. I had took a break from college, so I'm like, man, I need to finish what I started. I need to get on my feet, and I need to do life on my own. He's like, I respect that. That's cool. So he goes, and then get I get back into somehow I get them to let me back into school. So I start going back to school, working at Carl's Jr. Can't knock it, man. A job's a job, right?
Right. There you go.
Um, and then yeah, like things were starting to get a little better, starting to,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in a worldly sense, getting better for
Right.
me and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
got this moved out of College Junior into caring for the developmentally disabled.
Okay.
And so that's where I met my ex-wife
Mm-hmm.
at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Got into all of that, and her and I, we pretty much drove to Vegas and got married. What do they call that? Eloped or whatever.
Right.
And
Elope. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Little.
My mom knew though. It wasn't one of those. Yeah, we're gonna do this and we ain't gonna tell nobody.
Right.
We did all that. I was Muslim. She was
Okay.
Catholic.
Wow. So you were still
But
Muslim at that time?
yep, still
Okay.
Muslim, still practicing, still
Wow.
saying my at least 5 times a day prayers, and sometimes 7 times a day. Doing
Wow.
all of that, going through Ramadan, all the stuff they do. I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
keep up with.
Right.
Um,
And you were how old at this time?
by then I'm like 19, 20.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But before I got out of Carl's Jr., the manager of that Carl's Jr., he was Muslim too.
Wow.
And so he found out that I was, and he was like, "Hey, you want to come to Juma with me?" It was like kind of a repeat of when I first got,
Right.
and this is 3.5 years later. Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, you want to go to Juma with me? I was like, yeah. And he was like straight on Arabic. So he spoke Arabic, all of this stuff. Right. So we get there, we enter in, and when you go into the mosque, there's a wash station for the women and the men. So you go your separate ways. You got to wash. There's a ritual wash from your feet to your knees. So you do this wash in your face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Earlier on in my stupid youth, hanging with all the drug heads, I had got a tattoo of a drawing I did of a 6-pointed star, which ignorantly at that time I understood as the Star of David. So to me, it represented Mashiach. splattering down upon the earth, like coming down
Mm-hmm.
upon the earth.
Right.
So I had that on my left leg,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm washing, and then one of them in one of the officials in there, like, they see it and they go and run and tell the imam, and then the imam comes in and he starts going off on me in Arabic, and I knew just enough
to know that he was going off on
what he was going off about.
Right.
And I looked to my manager friend from Carl's Jr. and he's like, well, he says that he wants to know why you have that, and I'm explaining, and he's like, he repeats, translates that in Arabic to the imam, and the imam's like, thing starts going off even further, like even more like mad.
Wow.
And he's just like, he translates that to me, and he's like, he says, you can stay, but you need to say that God has no son. Like this was a mistake. And and the Ruach was in me at that time, because it was just like, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. That's crazy. Nuh-uh.
Straight up.
No way.
Right.
And he translated all that back to the imam, and the imam was just mad, and so he just said something to him. And so my friend was like, he says that you can't ever come back into here, and you can't go to any mosque in Arizona.
Wow.
I was kicked out of all mosques in Arizona.
So that's pretty much it of you.
So I was like, okay, that's fine.
Wow.
All right, cool. So from that point forward, I never went back into a mosque, but I continued to read and practice.
Okay, on your own.
Right? This is where, I started to, in that sense of the word, studied to show myself approved. Like once I started studying on my own, though, I started seeing the holes.
Right. Stuff started being revealed to you, right?
Yeah, it would take another
revealing things to you.
Yep. And it would take another 3.5 years.
Okay.
So 7 years I was Muslim. So it would take another 3.5 years before I actually left it. But yeah, my wife at the time, she got pregnant with triplets. Something happened, and to this day, I still don't know the truth about all that. So I leave that up to YAH. It used to really gnaw at me and eat at me.
Right.
I know that the old crowd that I used to run with, they were part of that, and they were involved.
Wow.
So it really, like, it ate at me.
I could imagine.
So we decided, that's why we wanted to move out of the United States. We decided we need to get, these people were bad. And so we were like, I'm like, I need to take my family far away.
Right.
And so we drove, we packed them up, said goodbye to my dad and my brother. And my sister and my mom had moved to Oakland by then, so they weren't there anymore. I think my mom had got a job in Oakland, so she moved. But we packed up, we drove as far as we could, far north. We got to Seattle, and then we started to look up the laws. Realized there's no crossing the border because we don't have express signatures from the children, her two daughters' fathers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you have to have their signature to cross the border. Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Canada's a really, like, their border laws, I don't know how they are now, but they were really strict. You couldn't have a felony, you couldn't do this, you can have any kind of messed up record in it and become a citizen there. So couldn't do it. And if you had other people's kids, you can't cross the border with other people's kids without permission.
Exactly. So, you're kidnapping them, basically. That's in their eyes, right?
For me, it was a repeat of my life. So we settled in Seattle. Found an apartment in Tacoma, so it's an hour south of Seattle, and we started our life there. I mean, I was still self-practicing Muslim. She was whatever she wanted to be at that time. She wasn't really a practicing Catholic. She just was along for the ride with things. And I started, this was when, during the age, we're talking like 97, end of 97 to 98. And so the advent of like 56K, you know, the modem.
Right. Dial up.
Yeah, dial up.
Right.
I made the funny noise in my testimony, but I'm not going to do
that. We all, what was it? You got mail and all that. That's old way. Right.
Yeah.
Way back.
Americans Online. Yeah. So at that point, I started really getting heavy into like getting sucked into chat rooms and pornography and all of this other stuff, you know, because I was pretty much home during the early mornings into the afternoon, and then I had work. And then I would have, sometimes I'd do graveyard shifts, but while I was home, she wasn't home.
Right.
And so all that temptation, you know, just comes. I fail at that time, and so I just started going deeper into that. And her and I, our relationship was not, our marriage was not. It didn't start out with truth. So I mean, she wasn't truthful about things. I wasn't truthful about things, and when foundations are built on lies,
right? Exactly.
Unless you fix those, and it's not going to last. It's going to fall apart.
Exactly.
And then plus we both come from those generational curses of, you know, like by that time my dad had already been through 3 wives.
Ooh, wow.
You know, her mom and dad and my mom. So that's like 6 marriages between my mom and my dad.
Wow.
And with my ex, it's like, you know, about the same.
Wow.
So that stuff is like still there, not understanding that at all.
Exactly. Don't have a clue. And we wondering why we acting like that.
Right.
But it's on us.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. So I really fell hard, man. I actually started, you know, thoughts become actions and actions become follow through. And I began to search out, you know, relationships somewhere else.
Wow.
And I found someone down the road from my house.
Wow.
And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because that's how convenient that that Hashatan will make things for you.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And I transgressed one night during a snowstorm. I was driving home and went to her house. And for 6 months, I held that in. Like I just dealt with it like internally. Until one night I came home, and at that time, like she had just, we had our daughter. So she was pregnant too at the time. Right. So I just was a horrible person, you know? And I come home and I sit down on the edge of the bed, and my daughter's crib is right on my side of the bed. And I'm just looking at my daughter sleeping, and I'm like, what am I doing, man? Like,
wow.
I've just destroyed my whole marriage in one night. How did I do that? You know? And it was at that time, like I literally, I went face to the floor and I began to just plea with the Most High. And I asked Christ, I asked Mashiach, you know, Christ at the time, I knew it was Christ. I'm just like, I know I've been like a rotten person. Like I've done some really rotten things, some very horrible things. Like if you, will you accept me back? Like, will you accept me? And there was a change in my heart. Like something changed, and I got up from the floor, and I was just sitting next to my wife at the time, and I'm staring at her, and she wakes up out of her sleep, still looking at me, staring at her. She's like, well, what's going on? You know? And so I was like, we got to talk. And so we go out on the patio of our apartment, and I proceed to just confess everything. Like I just, everything, you know, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this before I knew you. I've done this, I've done this. You know, I hung with this crowd and these people, and come to find out, she lived down the street from that same house, and she knew
who all
you know, all of
All
that.
those people, right? What was going on?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just, she was in tears, but she was also very angry.
Mm.
And from that point on, it was really hard. Like I worked hard to try and regain trust, but nothing was ever good enough. There was no full forgiveness. It was just, you know,
Right.
and I'm not putting all that on her, because I take full responsibility for my actions and my stupid choices. So I continue to try and work hard to gain that trust. And we you know, we struggled through. We went through some counseling, but that didn't last. We decided we needed to get out of that state and go somewhere else.
Right.
And so we moved to Colorado. So it's like a repeat in my life, man. It went from California to Arizona to Washington to Colorado. Arizona, Washington, Colorado. You know,
same
it's like
pattern.
YAH showing me like you're
You're
insane,
repeating the
right?
same pattern, right?
You're insane.
Expecting something different. You're going back to the same places.
Exactly. So yeah, we moved to Colorado Springs, same city.
Wow.
And
incredible.
Things were there for 2 years. This was like 2010. And we were there for 2 years.
Okay.
And things just didn't get better. So in 2010, I collapsed on the floor of my bathroom after showering. And so I went into the hospital, and they said that I was suffering from altitude sickness and severe dehydration.
Wow.
You know, moving to that altitude from where we were at, that, you know, that's understandable. And the amount of Coca-Cola I would drink each day, also understandable.
Wow.
You know?
Right.
I didn't smoke anymore because I quit smoking, you know, about 5 years before that. But they told me that, and so I left that hospital, and I'm just like, okay, I need to make some changes in my life. So I started working out every morning, dropped the sodas, just drank water.
Okay.
And I started reading the scriptures for myself. And at that time, we had started attending some mega church or something there.
Okay. So yeah, just drop the Muslim altogether and.
Oh yeah. When I
Oh, when you're right.
dropped to my knees and asked if he would accept me back, I'm just like, okay, I'm
done with the Muslim thing.
I'm confessing everything I did. And I told her then that night, I was like, I'm done with the Muslim thing. I want to know what this, you know, I want to know Christ.
Right.
You know? And so I was going hard with that for a minute. And I dropped the porn, all of that stuff for a good few years, and just worked really hard at trying to gain her trust and clean my life up and be there for my kids.
Okay.
You know, working like 4 jobs too. Like I just, you know, eventually got a job at the church there in a church, Foursquare Church in Seattle. And, you know, this was before we moved to Colorado Springs, but things fell apart. We moved to Colorado Springs, and they just continued to degrade. But I decided at that point when I collapsed, like after they told me what they told me, that I needed to make some changes. And so I did. I started working out every morning. I began to read the scriptures for myself. You know, I said, I'm going to start from the beginning. So I started in Genesis, you know, and every time that I've tried to read Genesis or the Bible from the beginning, my whole life, it's like I have a very bad astigmatism. So like I'd end up reading the same lines 5 times before I realize I'm on the same line. You know, so I would give up. I'd stop reading.
Right.
But when I started reading, yeah, when I started reading that, at that point in time, I know that he was trying to work in me, because I actually was starting to understand some of it and read it without that issue.
Right. Okay.
So came the point in time where my wife's like, well, you know, you're going to come to church with us? I'm like, nah, I don't want to go to that place.
Wow.
I said it like
Wow.
that. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, they don't say anything about the scriptures. It's a mega church. They don't do it.
Wow.
They're not
Wow.
doing anything. And she's like, you're
Mm.
spending all this time and doing this, this, and this. She's like,
Mhm.
are you becoming Muslim again? You're becoming
Wow.
Muslim. She started accusing me of becoming a Muslim again. I'm just like, what? I'm reading the
Right, right.
Bible. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's what religion teaches us.
Yeah.
If we don't go to church, something is wrong
Uh-huh.
with us. Hmm.
Yeah. So I was like, nah, I don't want to go to this church with you. You guys
Right.
go if you want, but I'm not going. I'm just not
Mm.
going. And
Hmm.
I would go on hikes every Saturday. And that's where I would talk to them and spend my time with them.
Okay.
And so I took my 2 sons and my daughter. So I took our 3 kids because the
Hmm.
older kids, they didn't want to ever go. But the younger kids, they always wanted to go to the mountains. And so I would take them with me. And I'd
Right.
always ask her too, like, or any of them, like, I'm going on the hike. You want to go? No.
Hmm.
So it would be just
Right.
the 4 of us and we'd go.
Wow. You and the kids. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of the life for like there for an hour or a year and a half. Um, I got a good job. Things were going well. I worked for a government
Hmm.
contractor. Um, I was getting a good paycheck,
Hmm.
and I was taking care of everything. Um, then I began to fall again. You know,
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
thoughts become actions. I began to Yahushua wasn't lying when he said, like, even if you think about it, you've
Yes.
already done
Yes.
it,
You already
right?
did it. Hmm. Yep.
And so, like, I started to go deeper into a depression. Like,
Wow.
I was not, I was disgusted with myself, is what it was.
Mm.
I was still walking down that path again, you know, and and one day I woke up and I was so under that oppression and depression that I didn't go to work. I actually parked my car in the parking garage for my work. And this was like a 5-story parking garage. I walked up to the top of that 5-story parking garage to the edge, looked down at the sidewalk, saw a clearing where nobody was.
Wow.
I had 1 foot off of the edge to take the other foot off of the edge. And I was just ready to just end it. Like I literally had just 1 foot off of the edge, hanging, just standing by my other leg, my left leg. And then my phone rang in my pocket, and I answered it, and it was, again, like I said, I was going down that wrong route. So it was
Right.
somebody that I was talking to over email,
Wow.
and it was a
Right.
coworker from a different state, working with a different sister company.
Wow.
And she's like, trying to talk to me like, "Well, you sound like this. What's going on?" I'm like, I don't
Hmm.
want no part. I don't, just, I was like, just when you hear something about me, um, just tell my family that I love them, like. And she's like, "What?" And then she started like trying to talk me down, and I just wasn't hearing it. Until she said, "Well, what about your kids?"
Oh, wow.
And that's when it really like grounded me. And so I stepped back away from the ledge,
Hmm.
and I got off the phone. I hung up the phone with her. And then at that time, my wife was like, had been calling and texting and calling and texting, like trying to find out
Wow.
what happened. Where am I?
Hmm.
I, I called her back, and I'm like, I can't do this no more. Like, I'm done. This is
Mm.
just too much. I'll talk after I get off work. We'll talk about everything. So
Hmm.
that day at work was like just surreal, man. Like I sat there, I did my work, but
Hmm.
I was lifeless.
Right. I could
Um,
imagine. Mm-hmm.
My boss knew, like they all knew I was just
You
off,
just
like
wouldn't.
way
Right.
off.
Right.
I got home, her and we sat down and talked. And I, tried to tell her, what was going on, like what kind of depression I was facing and the things that I was battling and all this stuff. But it was all with her, it was one sided. Like I was like, I just almost walked off of a 5-story
Right.
building,
Right.
and she's like, oh, well, I've tried to,
Oh
I
wow.
tried to kill myself back when I was at it. And I'm
Wow.
just like,
Wow. Oh no.
wait, we're not talking about back when we're talking about right now,
Exactly.
like,
Exactly.
but she just wasn't
Exactly.
hearing it. And I was like, okay. I said, that's fine. I said, but I'm done. I can't, we can't continue. I said, but I will continue taking care of the bills. I'll make sure that, everything is taken care of with the kids. I want to spend time with the kids. I'm not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to repeat a lot of the same things that my parents did.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not going to like just disappear.
Right.
I'm going to
Still
be
be there.
here.
Mm-hmm.
I just won't be in this house, but I'll make sure that you're taken care of
Mm-hmm.
and everything is taken care of. And I'll find somewhere to stay until I can get
Mm-hmm.
on my feet. And so that was okay for a couple days. Took my kids on a hike that, Saturday later, which is 2 days later, we went on a hike
Mm-hmm.
as normal, was talking to them and everything. And then I get them home, and then the next day she texts me and she's like, I'm taking the kids and we're moving to Washington. We're moving back to Washington. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Like, no, everything. You don't
Wow.
trust that I'm going to take care of everything, and don't take my kids
Mm.
that far. Like,
Right.
um,
Wow.
and yeah, bank account, got cleared out within a few days,
Wow.
everything, and kids and her were gone.
You
And
tried, you almost committed suicide Thursday, went on a hike Saturday, Sunday, the kid's gone.
mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Following week,
incredible.
within the following week, within a few
Right.
days,
In a week span. Right.
gone.
Wow.
And I even
Wow.
I called a lawyer. I tried to talk to a lawyer, but they're like, yeah, we won't talk to anybody unless you have a retainer. I didn't have any money at that time because I got drained and I was waiting on my paycheck, and I had a
Mm-hmm.
bonus coming too. And I'm like, okay, I can do
Mm-hmm.
this.
Right.
But all those jobs I worked was while she was going to college to go through legal.
Wow.
So
Knew the system. She knew
knew
the
the system was
Wow.
before I could even do
Wow.
anything. And so then when I
Mm.
finally was able to see a lawyer, this was after the fact, and the lawyer was like, well, there's nothing we can do now. You should have done this before she took the kids, because she shouldn't have been able to take the kids out of the state.
Mm.
If you're going through
Right.
a separation legally in Colorado, you can't do that. It's
Can't.
kidnapping.
Right. Oh wow. Wow.
And I was just like, they took that retainer, took half of my paycheck, and I'm still living with a friend from church, from a church that I did feel at home at,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm staying in their basement.
Wow.
I think it was their basement or one of the levels. And yeah, I finally get back on my feet again. But during
Mm-hmm.
that whole process, like, yeah, all the depression, the suicidal thoughts, everything, like a whole host of all that, along with anger, unforgiveness, just everything just came rushing in, and I really went full force into drinking. I started almost picking up the alcoholism and all of this stuff, too. Like
Wow.
I'd
Wow.
spend nights at the clubs and the bars, which were right on the street where my job was. I just get off
Wow.
work, go
Go right
drink,
over there.
drown away my sorrows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, get up, clean up, go to church on Sundays and help them out in
Wow.
in the
Right.
audio and all that
Wow.
stuff, because that's audio
Wow.
engineer is what I did.
Okay.
And it was double-mindedness, like on steroids, right?
Right.
So yeah, like I finally this was 2012, the end of 2012. And so on December 31st, 2012, I get a call from my mom, and my girlfriend at the time and I are driving to Denver, and I get a call from my mom. And before that, I had been getting these dreams of my mom and my dad. Like my dad, the dream would be like, he passed away and my sister didn't tell me for like 3 weeks. The one of my mom was that she called me to tell me that she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and she had 5 years to live. This was all happening before I get the call from my mom. And these were repeated dreams. Like I was constantly having them. So they really did concern me. So I would call my mom and my dad separately because they live in two different places. I call my dad first and I tell him, "Hey, Dad, I'm about to go on a hike. Just wanted to tell you I love you." And chat it up with him a minute, and then tell him, "Hey, if they find a bear with me in the bear's stomach, if they find a person that was me."
You know what happened.
Yeah. And then have the same kind of conversation with my mom. Then I go on a hike, and and it wasn't that kind of hike. It was a hike of I was hoping that I would accidentally off it myself. I'd go running down like really steep jagged rocks, hoping I'd trip. I would drive my old Ford Focus like on these roads, these off roads that a Ford Focus has no business driving down. Very narrow, very cliffy, just things like that. Like I was just on a death wish, really.
And y'all still had his hand on you.
He wouldn't let me.
Oh,
he would not let me.
That's what we say. It don't matter what, if y'all hand is on it, nothing you could do, nothing nobody can do that's gonna stop it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, we're driving to Denver, and my mom calls, and she's like, I could hear in her voice, she's like scared. And my mom was an alcoholic when I was a child, but when I became an adult, she got help, and she turned her life around.
Okay.
She turned to the Most High, and she began to turn her life around.
All right.
And he began to change her. So, but I never really, because of my childhood and everything that I went through, it was kind of a strained relationship. I love my mom.
Right.
I respect my mom. I honor my mom. But it was still a strained relationship.
Exactly.
She was in my life. She was. We kept communication, but it was, with me personally inside, I think it was always like, okay, when is the shoe going to drop, or that saying,
right.
When are we going to, because I know I fail. I know that I'm going to fall.
Right.
When is she going to fall?
Exactly.
And I could look back at it now and see that was what was going on inside. But anyways, she called and she started, I was like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "Well, they want me to go in and have a biopsy on my liver. They found some lesions. I've been in a lot of pain, and I would like it are you able to come out here to be with me when this happens?" And I was like, immediately I remembered the dreams. And I was just like, yeah, of course. Definitely going to be out there. So I drove out there. I was that night, December 31st, and then her biopsy was in early February. I drove out here from Colorado, and spent time with her, and then she had her biopsy, and my brother and I were the only ones in town. My sister was still in Tucson. And doctor comes in, they put us in the room, the situation room, I guess. And then doctor comes in, and he begins to tell us that she has stage 4. He thinks they send it off to be looked at, but he's pretty sure that it's stage 4 cancer, and the metastases are on her liver. That's not actually where the cancer is. So it's worse, and it's been spreading. And again, the dreams came back and reminded me, and I'm just like, okay, like the Most High is telling me, he gave me warning.
Mm-hmm.
And when he gave me warning, with my mom and my dad, I immediately started, trying to communicate and spend time with them every
Right.
week.
Right.
Never know when you're
Mm-hmm.
going to see them again, right?
Absolutely.
So I had a choice to make. I went back to my job, drove back over here, or not here, but drove back to Colorado. And
Mm-hmm.
at the time, my job was like, hey, we got this amazing opportunity for you. We want you to move to the UAE, Saudi
Wow.
Arabia. And we
Mm-hmm.
want you to be the manager over there. We're going to put you on like a $350,000 contract a year.
Wow.
And that's US. So whatever that translates to UAE is a lot more. And
Wow.
like you'll be set. Everything's
Wow.
good. My
Right.
boss was like, my contracts
You're gonna
manager was
be
like, this is a good deal, man. Just go
right.
do it.
Jump on it. Right.
You'll make the money. You'll get your kids back because we talked and he knew my life,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, you'll get your kids back and you can fight for your kids and da da da.
Right.
I'm like, but my
Right.
mom is told that she's
Mm.
got 5 years left, man. And
Right.
this contract is 4 years. What if I never
Mm.
see my mom?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And so I turned it down, and he called me crazy. He said I was stupid for doing that. But I was like, money has never mattered to me. So
Exactly.
my family has always mattered to me. So I packed up and was ready to start over again, and drove all the way out here and I moved in with my mom and my stepdad.
Mm-hmm.
And this would now be my mom's fourth husband.
Wow.
But he was kind. He was a good man.
Mm-hmm.
He loved her. He took care of her.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I lived with them, and I helped him take care of her, and helped take care of him too. And did my best while I was there, just to spend time with her, take care of them, and talk. And I got to know my mom in that last 5 years of her life more than I knew her in my whole life. You know, um, she spent so much time with the Most High in her mornings. She was so giving. Like, she sees somebody struggling at like a fast food restaurant or somewhere, like,
Mm-hmm.
and she'd be like, the Ruach would tell her, go give them this. And
She
without
would do it.
question,
Wow. She would
you
do it.
know,
Hallelujah.
she called, and she'd always help, like, me out, or even forward in time. Like, during that period of time is when I met my wife out here, my current wife now, and my only wife till I'm dead, because I'm not repeating that cycle. um, and it's been such a blessing. Like, I, my life has been so different since the Most High, like, brought me out here. I had to go through all of that stuff just to get out here, and then start from scratch, start over. You know, and then of course, we don't learn our lessons
Right.
that
We
quickly.
got to keep bumping our head.
We're what, stiff neck,
Stiff
right?
neck. Exactly. Stiff neck. Stiff neck.
So yeah, uh, my wife and I would get married, and my mom gets to I get to walk my mom down the aisle, seat my
Wow.
mom, dance with
Right.
my mom, some things that I never got to
Never
do.
do. Right.
And the look on her
Hallelujah.
face in in those last years of her life was just
Mm-hmm.
a blessing. And that smile's imprinted on my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Then she passed away in 2017. And going through that, like, we brought her home, and we just took care of her until the end. And that was one of the hardest things in my life. But it was, again, like I said, it was just a blessing too. Yeah. And she brought me into this world, and she took care of me, and then she left this plane, and I took care of her,
Right.
you know. Um,
Right.
but
Wow.
that year after she passed, I was the executor for all of her stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And because my stepdad, his heart wasn't good and he wasn't capable. She knew he wouldn't be able to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really hard on me because I didn't get to grieve at all.
Mm-hmm.
I had to take care of inheritances and make sure people got what she asked for them to get. And like I said, my mom, she was really giving. So she had a whole list. Like,
Right.
And so I followed that list to a T, even when the people in my family were like, no, we don't want to give. No, I don't care. This is what she asked for.
She wanted. Right.
You need to honor what she asked for. And that's what I'm going to do. And you're not the executor. So
bingo.
But I didn't get to that whole like 3 to 4 months time dealing with all that. I didn't really get to grieve. And then like, I know that my body went through some heavy stress at that time, and it woke up this autoimmune disease that I've had.
Wow.
Called pemphigus vulgaris. It's basically the top layer of your skin is glued together by a protein to the next layer of your skin. So the top layer is glued together to your epidermis glued to the subdermis and all that stuff, right? So my immune system will attack that protein. And then I'll get these like Job blisters and boils and lesions in my mouth and blood blisters in my throat and in my nose, and it's like bleeding through my nose and through my mouth, and it was bad. It started with just like a little, I thought it was a pimple on the back of my head, and we were going to take my sons back to their mom in Colorado, and I was scratching it, and I scratched it open, and then we got to Colorado, and next thing I know, we're eating, and it starts stinging in my mouth, and I've got these lesions in my mouth. I'm like, what is going on?
Wow.
Wow. But let me tell you something though. This was also the judgment of Yah. He was chastising me, right? Because I was also starting to get into New Ageism.
Oh, wow.
With the death of my mom and going through all that, I was like, okay, I need to make some changes in my life. I'm going to manifest my own destiny and all this other garbage.
Right.
And so I started walking that way, walking in circles on the block, saying all these stupid, I'm going to do this. I make this. I'm going to do this. I make this. And, Shaitan's giving it to me too. Like, here you go. Here you go.
He'll do it.
But then that happened. Like, it just hit me hard. And I still kept stiff neck, still kept continuing on in my process of walking on that wrong path.
Wow.
And going deeper into that stuff and getting worse and worse and worse and worse. I kid you not, like my wife had to order a silk pillowcase because the regular pillowcases, I would wake up and my flesh from my face and my forehead and my head would be stuck to my pillowcase, and I'd have to rip it off and then, go shower to get ready for work. And that would be like throwing acid on me. It hurt. It was very painful. It was a really horrible process. And then at the same time, I had to be careful because with this disease, it's like when you have all those open sores and everything, you can get infected and get all kinds of bad things happen.
Yep. You can die from those, getting an infection. Yep.
Yeah. So I was going through all that and still trying to walk into New Ageism. Stupid.
Wow.
They kept trying all the doctors, they did all these tests and everything. And at first they kept trying to say, oh, it's a fungal infection. And so they kept putting me on these antifungal medicines and all this other stuff, and nothing was working. Finally, they listened to me. I was like, can you just do like a biopsy and actually figure out what it is? So I'm not being ran broke trying to pay you guys. And they did. And that's when they found out what it was. So then they started putting me on all these corticosteroids and all this other stuff, was immunosuppressants. And it was really messing me up even worse.
Wow.
So I was like, I'm not taking none of this stuff no more. Like, if I die, I die. I'm not doing this stuff no more.
Right.
And it was at that point they were like, oh, they've got this new thing that's been working really good with people with your autoimmune disease. It's like, okay, well, I'll do that. So it was like a chemo injection type of thing. And so it was a 2-year regimen.
Wow.
2.5 years. And it was like I had to go through it once every 6 months or so. There was a certain regimen, like months apart,
Right.
that process. And halfway through it did start to put this thing into remission.
Okay.
It started calming down. The ones on my arms and my body skin just like started going away quickly.
Wow.
The ones in my mouth were so deep, the lesions were so deep, it took like more months, and one of them about a year to heal.
Ooh.
The ones on my head, my scalp, took about the same because they were so deep. Like you could almost see my skull on one of them. That's how deep it was.
Ooh.
Yeah,
bandages over them?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, I kind of covered things up when I went to work or whatever, but that was worse too because the long sleeves over that, I'd come home and it rip that off. It's like ripping duct tape off your skin.
Right. Oh my goodness.
After a while, you just get used to it though. But praise Yah, like that started working. I got a different job. I started working in this job. And I ended up going down the same stupid route again. Got seduced by somebody at work. I started going down that route. I was still in the New Ageism.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so I'm just like going with the flow, just as they teach you, all this garbage and all the lies from the pit of hell is what it is.
Absolutely.
And we crossed a small line, and this was in at 2020 hit. I had three albums I was set to release with a producer in LA and somebody over here and one of my own. And I was excited. I was like, all this, I'm gonna do this, all this mantra stuff, right? And I am not the I am. Yeah, I am not the I am, right?
Right.
That all just tanked because of the whole
COVID
thing going on in 2020.
Right.
I don't know how much of that you want me to talk about, but yeah, that all tanked. And so I started like going back into depression.
Oh, wow.
Started like really thinking like there's something just completely wrong with me. And I remember it was in September of that year. My wife and I were driving home on Sunday. I don't remember what we were doing, but we were driving back home from the city because we live in a rural area. We were driving home from the city down the highway, and I just was like deep in introspect. I was just deep in thought and like, but depression. And my wife was like, are you okay? Because she saw the look, my look on my face. I was just like, had this look, and she's like, are you okay? And I'm just like, no. That's all I could say to her. But in my mind, I was just having I think at that point for myself, it was a one-sided dialogue with the Most High. And I'm just like, like my whole life has been this horrible roller coaster. And I'm just not happy. Like, and I'm talking about happy, like money or riches. I'm really tired of myself. And I was like, yeah, or God at the time, because that's all I knew. I was like, if you don't show yourself, if you don't let me know you, then I'm done. I'm done with my life. I'm done with this, and I'm done with you. And it was just another one of those moments where, you know, the top of the building moment where it's just like, I'm just going to walk off. I'm done, you know? And we got home and we sat in the driveway. She's like, so are you going to talk to me? Or are you going to tell me what's going on?
Right.
You know?
Right. Say something.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I began to just pour out, you know. I'm just like, you know, I don't know my grandparents, like my grandfathers. I know my grandmother on both sides, but I do not know my grandfathers.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know most of my lineage. I don't even know what my purpose here is. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just struggling and I'm falling apart, and I don't feel like I'm hearing from God at all. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to live no more.
Mm-hmm.
And she was, you know, I was in tears and she was in tears, and she's like, she agreed. She was kind of in the same boat,
Wow.
but we
Wow.
never really like had that
Expressed it.
discussion.
Right. Right.
And she was just like, you know, well, what do we do? And I'm just like, I don't know. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, we need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I saw this sermon, like, we should go watch that. So I was like, well, we could watch that. We could watch it later, you know.
Right. Right.
And so we did. We sat down. We watched. It was some, you know, that Michael Todd guy. He's in Tulsa,
Right.
right?
Uh-huh.
It was one of his.
Wow.
And it
Wow.
was about doors, right? And I'm sitting here
Okay.
and I'm watching this
Mm-hmm.
thing, and you know, and she's like, oh yeah, yeah. And I'm just sitting here watching it and having been through Islam, and you know, I've had a stint through with the Jehovah Witness, and you know, I
Mm.
skipped some things in my life, but I've been through a lot of different
Religion.
denominations and
Right.
religions,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And it's kind
Wow.
of like when you've been on the inside, you see it all.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I'm just like, yeah,
Heard it
okay,
before.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole door thing,
Mm.
that stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, it was me that was slamming the door in the Most High's face every time. And that's what
Wow.
I just kept
Wow.
hearing inside. Like,
Mm.
I've been here. I,
The
show
whole time.
myself to you.
The
Show myself
whole
to you. I've been here.
the whole
You know,
time. That
the
time
whole
you was about to
time.
jump off that building and
I was there.
time they beat you up
I
and
was
left you for
there.
dead.
The time you almost killed your sister, I was there.
Exactly. I was there the whole
That time
time.
you could have like killed somebody driving like you were driving under those drugs.
Right.
I was
Right.
there.
I was there the whole time with you.
You know, the time that them
Mm.
heathen came running the house and they were acting how they were acting because of what they did, I was the one that put that in you to get up and get out of there, you know? And those were the things that were my whole life, like all of those things were flashing inside of me. And I'm just like, okay. So then that Monday, the next day, I work from home now by that time. And I'm just like, got my whatever music playing, and I'm just working, and I hear, you know, shut it off.
Mm. Wow.
So I shut it off, and I opened up YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and at that time I came across, I just started doing some searching. Just,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you start seeking the truth.
Yep. It's just all gonna come in your face.
Let's go. Bam,
It's
here you
all
go.
gonna
Here
start
you go. Here you
lining.
go. Here you
Yep.
go. Here you go.
Yep.
Want some of this? You
Yep.
know, and you gotta make sure you eating the right
Right.
truth, right?
Right. Right. Right.
I not knowing that, but knowing that something was happening,
Mm-hmm.
I just started seeking, and first thing I came across was it was a Parable of the Vineyards channel,
Okay.
and they were doing something about um, the name of Jesus, and that wasn't his name.
Mm. Mm.
he
Wow.
he was Hebrew. He had
Wow.
a Hebrew name.
Mm-hmm.
Da 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 da. And I'm just like, what is this? What?
Right.
The name of God isn't a name, it's a label.
Right.
Then they go through the
Yep.
tetragrammaton, and
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like hit me like a ton of bricks that day. Like all day
Mm.
Monday, I was searching out those two names. Like, is
Right,
this,
right.
and they're just eating it up, and
Mm-hmm.
that week, so by like I'm doing this during the day, my wife's going off and having her own experience with the Most High
Mm-hmm.
also,
Mm-hmm.
and we're both coming together in the evening, like, look, I found this and this, and some
Wow.
of it was like kind of too hard for her at the moment. She's just
Mm-hmm.
like,
Right. Have to pause on that one. Wait up.
yeah, let's pump your
Right.
brakes, let's pause for a minute,
Right.
let's
There
check
you
it
go.
out, and I was like, okay. So by Wednesday, I understood that the commandments had not been done away with and we were lied to. And that one, like, it was just, I don't know. I think we all have gone through this where we hit that truth, that specific truth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just one of them, but we hit
Right.
that's kind of like the
That one.
first
Yep.
one we
And it
hit.
just clicked. Yep. It
It
just clicked.
clicks, and then you have to deal with the anger too.
Right.
Like they lied to me.
They lied to me this whole time.
This whole time, and I'm like, okay. My wife gets home that Wednesday night, and I'm like, we gotta start. I'm hearing we gotta start obeying all the commandments. She's like, what does that mean? Like the 10 commandments? I'm like, we start there, yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
That's a good place to start.
She's like, okay, so all right. Like, don't we already do that? I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm also hearing that we need to enter into the Shabbat. And she's like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, it means that we need to obey the fourth commandment. It wasn't done away with. Time with God is not that day that they all collect on and claim that it is. And I was trying to explain it to her in words that she would,
understand. Right.
And she's like, okay, I could see that. She's like, I've been kind of hearing some of the same stuff. Like we haven't been, there's a lot wrong. And I'm like, okay. So our first, she's like, so how do we do that? And I'm like, she's like the Jewish people do. And I'm just like, no, not Judaism. Like,
Right.
I knew enough. I was like, no,
not that.
That's another religion. That's just religion.
Right.
I'm like,
Exactly.
I was like,
exactly.
We need to get rid of all religion and just read and walk through the scriptures ourselves and let him show us what that means.
Exactly.
We could look on YouTube and get kind of pointers and stuff from other people that have been walking in that way.
Right.
But we really need to listen to the Ruach, the spirit at the time is what I knew and only knew. And we need to listen and obey that. When we hear his voice, we need to obey. And right now, I'm hearing we need to enter into the Shabbat, into the Sabbath. And she's like, okay. So let's do that this week then. I'm like, yeah. We start now.
Right.
Yep.
Wow.
So that first Shabbat, I had a coworker who was a widow. And we bought food, we took her food, and as we almost get to her house, we're like, wait, were we supposed to buy that? Did we just mess up? Like what? Wait, we weren't supposed to do that. And I heard the Ruach in me. It was like, no, you're doing good. Like this isn't exactly. You don't be like that religion. This isn't religion.
Exactly.
And I'm just like, okay. So yeah, we went, we took her food, we sat with her and we listened to her. She has a potty mouth and but we tried to minister to her. And,
right.
We just remained an example the best we could. Then we left, we came back home and we were like sitting there and we're looking at each other like, okay, what do we do now? I was like, let's read. Let's just
Right. There you
read.
go.
Let's
That's getting the
read.
word. That's
So we
getting the
just
word.
started getting the word. And from that point on, that was in September 2020. That's when we began to just walk in the way. We began to read the scriptures, let the scriptures guide us, let his Ruach guide us, and listen to him.
Wow.
And when he says something, when we hear him say, obey. You know, test the spirits, of course, but obey once we know it's coming from him. If it, you know, and
hallelujah.
Yeah, praise Yah. Like that, from that point on, like the rest of what I was dealing with this disease, like just went completely away.
Wow.
You know,
wow.
And the astigmatism, I was wearing glasses before I came to him.
Wow.
Before September, I was wearing glasses. By October, I put the glasses down.
Wow.
My wife, during that whole time when I was dealing with my disease, my wife was dealing with another, her own affliction. And she had severe migraines that were debilitating. Some days she couldn't even go to work. She couldn't get up out of bed. She couldn't walk. Those within like 2 months, gone. He took them away.
Hallelujah.
She was taking injections in her leg for him. Like they had her on all kinds of pharmakia.
Wow.
Gone. But Ruach told her stop doing it.
Wow.
And it was one of those things where it's like those medicines that if you stop doing them immediate like that, you're going to have problems.
Wow.
So she had
no issues.
No issues.
Wow.
So stop doing them. There's just so many like things that Yah has done over the past 4 years for us since we began to obey him and walk in him. You know, and we're not, none of us are perfect, and we ain't walking. We strive to be.
There's only one, exactly. There was only one.
We strive to be just like him.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But that's the point. We strive to be, right?
We don't come with the religion mindset where they tell us, "Oh, I'm not perfect," and well, I could keep on sinning. No, like you just said, we strive to be perfect. That doesn't mean I can continue to walk in sin and willingly walking in sin and say, "Oh, I can't be perfect." No, it don't work like that.
And
you have to obey him.
Yep. And when I do, and when I do, like when I have found myself like drifting off a little bit, them things come back, man. Like I'd get like a small one in my mouth or something, and I'm just like, okay.
I know I gotta change something. It's time to change. I gotta change. I'm drifting off.
It's like hit me with a special form of leprosy. Like, okay, now,
wow,
get right,
okay. right quick, right quick. Yeah. No, I mean that's man. You have a powerful testimony, brother Donald. I mean you pretty much laid it out from Christianity. Started as a childhood Muslim. I didn't know that. You didn't see that in your testimony. So that was deep. You just said too about Jehovah's Witness. I mean, the fact that you almost suicide, the many times that Yah had his hand over your life, brother. Yah, the power of Yah is amazing. He's had his hand on all of our lives. I mean, we all have similar testimonies through like yours with the childhood things. We all went through things, and Yah has had his hand over all of our lives. And brother, I just appreciate you for sharing that. It's such an encouragement of what Yah has done for you, what he continues to do for you. I just want to ask you right quick. I mean, and it's kind of, this is for the people that's kind of on the fence or are struggling within the truth. What kind of advice would you have for them?
Don't drink from the fire hose. Something I learned from you, brother. Don't dine at too many tables. You know, if the table ain't right, don't stay there. Of course. If it ain't about scripture, if all right. So one thing that he said to me last year, right before I put out my last album, he led me to Revelation 14:12. In this time that we live in, you got to walk with both legs. You have the testimony of Mashiach, and you have the commands of the Most High, of our Father. You need both legs. If you ain't walking with both legs, you're tripping.
Say that again.
If you ain't walking with both legs, you're tripping.
Amen.
You know,
that's the truth, brother. That's the truth.
And so you gotta. There's no way around that. And the enemy is going to come and try and sweep us off our feet. He's going to try and knock us off of one of those legs.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to attack one of those legs, if not both of them. But he's always going to try to make you a peg leg. Just straight up. I mean, if your heart, like you and the sister are constantly saying lately, if your heart is not in Mashiach, if you are not loving him and listening to him and having that faith, then your other leg is going to get hit by the enemy. Look, you're not obeying this properly. You're not like you know, you're not doing this right. You're not doing this. You're not.
He's steady accusing us.
Yep. And I want to say another little piece of advice. And you can edit this out if you want. It's up to you. But I'm mixed, right? I've caught heat in the last 4 years from both sides. And you know what? I've caught heat from all my life from both sides. You know, both sides of my family reject, you know, not everybody in my family, but you know, you get what I'm saying?
Yep, I know.
Don't let all of this ideology and all of this dogma and everything that people these are religions. Don't let that steer you away from trying to grasp at the hem of his garment. Like the sister with the blood, you know, the issue of blood did. Like she didn't let the crowd stop her. Don't let what somebody's going to tell you that you don't belong. Like you don't belong, you know, because you're not the right this, you're not the right that. It's not true. It's a lie.
Say that, brother. Say it.
It's a lie.
Say that, brother.
Did the woman who wanted Yahusha to help her, who was a Gentile, did she quit? Did she stop? She said no. Even the dogs get the crumbs off the table. She didn't let anyone was saying stop her from reaching for him.
Exactly.
So don't let other people do that to you, because at the end of the day, here's the last piece. Ain't none of them going to be standing next to you at your judgment. None of them. Ain't none of them going to be standing next to you. So you could have the choice of the lawyer that's your judge, or you can have the accuser and all these people that you gave your attention to.
Yep.
Like that ain't gonna stand next to you.
That's not gonna exactly. And they could have been leading you astray the whole time. Exactly. Exactly.
Yep.
Deep, brother. Deep. I'm glad you shared that. I mean, that's something that we say on our ministry channel. This color of our skin not gonna get us in, brother.
Oh yeah.
It's not. If that heart not right, you could be Hebrew all you want. You could be Gentile all you want.
You could be both like me.
Exactly.
You know,
that heart not right, you're not getting in. You're
nope.
not getting in. So I'm glad you share that, brother. Man, I just thank you. It's your testimony was moving. It was impactful. It was powerful. You're definitely gonna encourage a lot of our brothers and sisters that's on this walk and trying to walk this thing out. I mean, it was deep, brother. I definitely thank you for sharing it. And you do music too, you said.
Yes.
You want to just tell them about your channel right quick?
Zayin Kaph, CAYINKAPH is the YouTube handle. I do music for the CASHAPP. I put music down right at 2020 when you heard what I said. Like when he said turn it off, I turned it off, and I was done for about 6 months until he started speaking to me. And then he started, giving me albums. And
Wow.
what the Ruach tells me to write, I write. What the Ruach tells me to create, I create, and then I just put it out there.
Wow.
I just pray that it reaches somebody and leads them to him. That's the seeds. That's all I'm putting out there.
Beautiful,
And
brother. Beautiful.
I just pray that
Absolutely.
it blesses anyone who hears it and brings them to him. I'm working
Absolutely.
currently on an album called Fertile Soil.
Okay.
And it's based around the seeds, the parable of the sower. And lots of cool things that YAH has been showing me as I've been working on this that I never connected before.
Wow.
Like the story of young Abram scaring off the ravens from the seed,
right,
in Yashar, and how that coincides with the parable of the sower.
Wow.
It's just amazing. So
Wow.
I'm currently in mix down of this, and I'm hoping
Okay.
to get it done in the next couple months. We all have lives and families too.
Right. Yeah. Right. We gotta pay the bills, brother. We gotta
Yep.
pay the bills.
Yep.
But man, we definitely gonna be on the lookout for that. Definitely check out
Hallelujah.
Brother Zion's channel and see look into his music. Great stuff, man. You can also check out his testimony. I mean, but he shared a lot here. I mean, it was powerful. So thank you, brother, for sharing that with us. What a blessing. And family, I hope y'all enjoyed it just as much as I have. Definitely go and follow Brother Zion's channel and support his music. So we thank you all, and we're going to sign off, family. All right.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.